evening. Welcome to Current Condition, our special Thursday night edition. Sorry for the little schedule change, but obviously sometimes things come up. And as you're going to see today, we actually have a very special guest. So you're going to notice a little bit of flow here, and that is okay. We're going to always do our best to be here for you Wednesday at 9, because I know you plan your nights around it. But I know you're going to enjoy tonight. So also, the new Pittsburgh Current came out weekly on Tuesday, digital, online. There is some amazing content in there. If you are not signed up yet to get your issue delivered fresh to your inbox every Tuesday, please go to the website and sign up now. And while you're there, catch up on some of the great stories that we have up. The Current team and our producer Jake have been just doing an amazing job covering the events that have been unfolding on all sorts of fronts. I want to welcome my co-host and partner in, I was going to say crime, but we don't really do anything criminal. Miss Bethany Allen. Just a little bit. We keep it on the edge. I would like to also welcome our very special guest, Liv Bennett, County Councilperson for District 13. Liv, welcome to Current Condition.
Hey, everybody.
Hello. Well, we definitely do not have a shortage of things to talk about, so I'm just going to jump right in. You both had very unique vantage points for Tuesday. If anybody forgot already, it was Election Day. Bethany, let's start with you. From your perch as somebody on the Board of Elections, and then I'd love to hear Liv's perspective from somebody that was out all day working the polls. So, Hallam, go.
Yeah, awesome. So I think, first of all, it's important to remind people that so many things were different this election day than in any other election we've experienced before. So for the first time ever in Pennsylvania, there was the opportunity to vote by mail, no excuse absentee voting, which was definitely what I think contributed to such a high turnout. We had over 311,000 votes that were cast in Allegheny County. That is an amazing, amazing number. So it's definitely something to be proud of. Thank you to everyone who participated in our democracy, whether by mail or in person at the polls on Tuesday. Second of all, this is, in case anybody didn't know, the midst of a global pandemic. So that definitely also played a role in everything that went down on Tuesday. And then on top of that, even campaigning was different. The election date was changed from April 28th till June 2nd. So candidates had an extra couple months, whether I would bet that most people said that that was not something that they were looking forward to, but there were a lot of candidates who were able to awesomely utilize social media, digital campaigning, and were able to really extend their reach to voters. So I think that was great. There were a lot of issues that I saw, but again, take all these factors into play. I do think that it was great that we got to find out in the primary where our issues were and where we were lacking in Allegheny County, so that when it comes to the general and taking that jagoff out of the White House, we can really focus on all of these things that we've learned in the primary and can take into the general. A few of those things are, issues with the mail-in voting. As many people know, Governor Wolf, 24 hours before the polls were going to open, issued an executive order saying, extending the deadline for mail-in ballots to be received. Unfortunately, I think it caused a lot of confusion that people thought, oh, that means I have another week to get my mail-in ballot in. But the reality was the ballots still had to be postmarked by Election Day, which was Tuesday. So really that was meant to help folks who had already mailed in their mail-in ballots, and Elections Division just hadn't received them yet. We also had some confusion at the polls regarding provisional ballots for folks who had requested mail-in ballots and not turned them in. People were being denied some provisional ballots at the polls. There were some folks who were given the wrong ballot at their polls. I mainly saw those in a couple wards in the city, was mainly where I saw that. And overall, for a first-time effort, I think it was good, but I really think what we need to focus on is how we can make this process better, not just for November, but for the primary in 21 and every election after, because mail-in voting wasn't done for COVID-19. It just was a coincidence that was the timing of it. Mail-in voting is here to stay. We need to perfect that method as much as we can, and we need to make sure that every vote is counted and obstacles to the polls are eliminated for everyone.
Awesome. And now, Liv, on the other side of that, what are some things that you maybe saw going right that that really might be a little counterbalance to some of the things that Bethany saw that might be worked on?
Well, again, I agree that there was a lot that, that just didn't go right. So I'm not ever going to try to gaslight folks and be like, we did it perfectly, because we didn't. But I will say that we did it a lot better than some other counties. For example, we started counting mail-in ballots as soon as we opened the polls on election day, so that, and by the time the polls closed, we were done counting our mail-in ballots. And so we only had to do our in-person ballots, where Philadelphia, they waited for their polls to close, did their in-person ballots, and then still have to do their mail-in ballots. So we're still waiting for state results because of that. So I think Allegheny County just had a better method there. We also, which other counties did not, we also mailed out every single person a mail-in ballot application so that they didn't have to request that on their own, and they were able to mail that back in and get their ballot with postage. Other counties did not do that, because I was on calls with other counties and they did not do that. They were actually giving props to Allegheny County for doing that. So yeah, there's a few things that we did do right. And of course, we do want to make sure that we're cleaning up and correcting those things that did not go right, because we want to make sure that we're getting better. We're not just like, oh, well, it went well enough. So we want to make sure that we're doing it in excellence, as much as possible. And so for that, I always say, I credit the good things that happened and the protections that we got to Bethany, because she was the one that was really advocating for us on the Board of Elections, as Rich and Sam DeMarco, the supposed Democrat and the Republican, were voting together. Like, and where does that happen? So, yeah. So, I mean, I actually did get, and I think Bethany may have too, got inquiry on how do we expand the Board of Elections to include more people, because it's just not really representative of who's in our county. And fortunately, we have a Bethany here. Imagine if that was DeFazio still there.
Yeah. Let's not.
I mean, somebody took me to the alternative universe of if Hillary was president, and that looked pretty nice. But we could go back into the ugly. And what if DeFazio was your other member on the Board of Elections that had to stand up for you? Do you really think that this election would have been nearly? I mean, I'm not claiming it was perfect, but even the things that did go right probably would not have gone right. So I think that we all need to tip our locks, our hat, our whatever to Bethany Hallam. So.
Thank you, Liv.
Oh, I thought she meant me. Oh my God.
Well, you can share the name. Y'all can share.
So Liv, I have to say, I jokingly told Bethany we had to push back filming, because I don't know if you saw her wicked mask sunburn from being outside all day working the pole.
It's still there a little bit.
Is it there a little bit?
You see it?
Sunscreen, Bethany. Sunscreen.
I was laughing at her cheer. Like,
yeah.
I can't even remember it. Like, Emily Kincaid, and I was like, she got a whole chant.
Happy election day, vote for Emily Kincaid. I had a megaphone, Bethany.
I know. Megaphone.
Bethany, maybe you should rewrite our JoJo.
I'm restricting people from my protest that have their own damn megaphones.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yes.
That's actually a great segue, Liv, because I want to talk now about what's been going on locally, nationally, even across the world with the George Floyd protests. Let's start locally. I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on how would you rank or grade or, how would you describe the city's reaction to what you saw? Bethany, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Liv.
Okay, are we doing like a 1 to 10 or like an A to F kind of grading scale here?
Whatever your preferred grading method is.
Okay. I would say if we're talking about Pittsburgh's response specifically, I'd say a D-. Again, I don't want to give anybody an F and I don't want to give anybody an A, because nobody's perfect, but unless you're here in this Zoom call right now. But I think that we have seen so many issues locally. Liv and myself, I know we're both down Saturday at the protest. Liv, I don't know if you saw any of the other ones. Maybe you can speak to that after. But I just know that what I saw when I was there were thousands and thousands of folks who were peacefully protesting against, the murder of folks by the police, especially in this country. Black folks are killed unarmed by police at twice the rate of white folks, okay? And so I think it's really important that we highlight that, as much as people want to say this isn't about race, unfortunately, it is when it comes to the police and violence against unarmed folks especially, or any folks, There is no excuse for the police to be judge, jury, and executioner. That is not how our country is devised, and that's for a reason. And when it comes to the protest, again, it was overwhelmingly peaceful. But unfortunately, all we see in the news is looting and vandalism. But at the end of the day, I've even seen business owners saying this. Buildings and property can be replaced. A life is something that you can never bring back. And I, as a white woman, cannot put myself in the shoes of a Black woman who has children or loved ones or themselves who are afraid to go outside, to drive down the street, to play video games in their own house, to go to the stores without being murdered by the police. And I think that's something that we need to think about when we're looking at all of the violence that breaks out. People are frustrated, and they've been peacefully protesting for not just years, for decades, for centuries. I mean, we can go back to like the Tea Party, right? We can go back to the Boston Tea Party. We can go all the way back to the beginning of our country and see that the peaceful protests are not getting the results. But when you look at the outrage of folks and you see this coming through in their actions, I mean, I just really can't speak to that enough about who are you to tell someone how to express their grief? Who are you to tell someone how to protest? Who are you to say that our voices are going to be heard if we don't, cause a commotion? And so I think that that's a really important point that we focus on throughout all of this. The grading that I gave Pittsburgh of a D- was because of the fact, some inconsistencies in reporting from both the mayor and the Pittsburgh police, versus we have all seen live videos and recorded videos later of all different angles of what happened both on Saturday in East Liberty. And what I saw is peaceful protests that violence started whenever the police showed up in full riot gear on big ass horses and just were there to intimidate and instigate the crowd. And that's where I think they kind of lost me, was because I didn't see you anywhere there to protect us, which isn't that the job of the police to protect and serve. Instead, what I saw was instigation and the use of tear gas and rubber bullets. I saw some destructive pictures of folks who were shot point blank with rubber bullets by the police officers. And remember, this is even before the curfew started. So that even can't be used as an excuse. These are people who are standing in the street, speaking their minds, and they are, attacked by the police. And so that's why Councilwoman Bennett and I will be introducing an ordinance on Tuesday to ban the use of tear gas, flashbang grenades, and rubber bullets by anyone in Allegheny County.
All right, and I think that's a great time to flip this over to Liv. Liv, sort of the same question. What are your thoughts on the city's response, and then maybe talk to us a little bit more about this ordinance that you and Bethany are working on.
So I don't have any problems with felon people, and so I say F. Like straight garbage. First of all, we're out in the street. The whole reason we are out in the street is the violence of police against Black lives. That is the whole reason we're in the street in the first place. And for this, and I personally led chants most of the protests. I didn't even have a voice on Monday. My voice is really just now coming back. So, and I never even led the chant that said, who did this? The police did this. Like, purposely, like, because it wasn't like I while I have this tension with police, I do understand that there are some that are good police. But on the other side of that, if you're such good police, then why aren't you calling out the bad police? So there's a whole dichotomy there too for me. But so for me, it's like y'all came out to and y'all basically doubled down on why we were there in the first place. You showed us that we are exactly right in what we're doing, because you still come out with this huge reaction, this over-aggressive reaction to peaceful protesters in the street and that are unarmed peaceful protesters. Where was that energy when people were standing downtown with AR-15s protesting haircuts? Like, we're talking about, we're in these streets about real lives, and y'all want to come in and be aggressive to us, but people are out there protesting haircuts and with AR-15s, but y'all are like, okay, that's their freedom. They have the freedom to do that. Why do they? I wonder what gives them that freedom as opposed to us having the same freedoms. Just wanted to know. So
I think it's
that's one.
Rights.
Just, I mean,
just one little.
That's one. Then I have an issue with the media, and I understand I'm on the media platform right now, but I do have an issue with media.
Well, no, honestly, Liv, I'm glad you brought that up, because part of my notes for today is I want to grade the media's response too, and and it's hard from a media perspective. The narrative's always shifting, and we do work so hard to get it right. But let's talk about it. What do you think about the media response?
I got reached out to for an interview, and the whole basis of the interview was how to protect media at protest because this KDKA reporter got attacked. So, and I always feel like no one asked the right questions. No one ever. Like, we're all talking about the riots and what happened and the violence and who started it and Antifa and blah, blah, blah. But no one's ever asked the question, why? Why has this started? Why are people now aligning that normally wouldn't even align? Like, where's that conversation? Like, how has, as a society, have we gotten so many people pissed off at us that we can't even tell our friends from our enemies at this point? Like, there's the conversation. So, so that's one part that's not even being talked about. But secondly, media and Black folks have a history of their own. So media now wanting to shift themselves and act like they've not been part of the problem and like, oh, well, what can Black people do to protect us at our protests? Like, y'all have never done anything to protect us. Y'all don't go out your way to show positive imaging and positive messaging around Black people. Every time we're in the news, it's about criminality or something negative. You don't do anything like, you don't highlight Black businesses. You don't partner. You don't do anything. You don't highlight Black leadership, like none of that. So now you come out to a protest and you expect us to protect you? No, we're done with you. We have our own media. Like, why do we want to use media that we have to guess on how you're going to shift the message after we giving you what our talking points are, when we have our own media that we're able to know that whatever our narrative is not going to be shifted or co-opted to sensationalize? Because that's what basically mainstream media is really trying to do, is sensationalize. Is like, oh, well, you have a beef with this person. Like, they make up stuff out of nowhere just to like create imaginary drama. Like, you want to go right for Young and the Restless, go right for Young and the Restless. Like, if you're a news media outlet, then be that. Like, so yeah. So I think that there's many parts to this that need to take ownership, and to sit here and act like it all falls on police or it all falls on corporation or it all falls. Everybody has a role and a piece of it, and y'all and media needs to do its part as well in owning the bullshit that they've perpetrated throughout the years and making some type of reconciliation for that, apologies for it, so that we can rebuild. Because what I find is often we want to go on and continue on acting like these harms haven't happened and expect Black folks to be like, take it on the chin and just keep operating like there's never been a harm. We're done with that. If you can't tell us, if you can't come back and make penance and make peace for the wrongs you've done, and then you want to put you in our fold, no, it's not going to happen. So media needs to own up to their bullshit too.
So media also gets an F from Liv.
Media gets an F.
That's fair.
You're feeling everybody. I get it.
But, yeah, hey, if ever people needed to be failed, like, now's the time, and now they've been showing their asses, and yeah, this is all due. Not to take away from the media conversation, because honestly, Liv, I think we could do a whole show on just that. But I would like to hear a little bit more about the ordinance that you're passing and how you think that's going to have an impact, and what are the odds it's going to get passed?
I said that to Bethany when I said we can introduce it all day, but I doubt we ever get this passed. But hell, it's making a statement. Like we're I mean, sometimes you just need to do something, even though you know that your fellow members on whatever, you know, council you sit on, you know that they're not going to vote for it. But sometimes you just need to make the statement like, look, we understand, we see what's going on, and so we're trying to do something to help bring about resolution. And part of the calls are for demilitarization of police. And if you think about weapons such as chemical warfare, like tear gas and rubber bullets and all those types of weaponry, that is weaponry of a militarized force. So if we're talking, like, to me, it just makes sense in the goals that we've already set. And I think that's, I think Bethany and I, and not to toot our own horns, but I think Bethany and I have done that. I think everything that we said that we wanted to do, everything we ran on, we haven't changed. None of this is new. We're not now in office like, oh yeah, we played like we were these, you know, little moderate people. Now we came in office, we're hella progressive. No, we were honest, and we're doing everything from our first vote of president forward has been all about everything that we said we wanted to do on council, separating council from the executive body, police reform, and part of that police reform, demilitarization of the police, ACJ, like everything we're doing. So I don't understand, like, one, people like coming at us like, whoa, what are y'all doing? Like, we're doing a whole lot. We're doing more than the other 13 members. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't say that. Maybe about 8 members. Like, I shouldn't say that all of the other 13 are not working. There are some that are. So I won't say all 13. But you know, just my point is that we're constantly getting like, and maybe because we're so out there and available, but we're constantly getting like all these, you know, we want this and we want that. And it's like, look, we're doing it. Like, go troll them people. They're the ones that don't support this. We're with you.
And I think that it's important to highlight all the work. I don't know if everyone's aware of all the work that Liv especially has been doing around the creation of a countywide civilian police review board. That is something that the city of Pittsburgh has for their police force. And in Allegheny County, we see, you know, almost regularly how necessary that is here and in every jurisdiction across the country. It is necessary that there is civilian oversight of the people who are policing us. And so it's important, you know, and there was a bill that was introduced last year before we were on county council, if y'all remember, and you know, both of us were very outspoken during our campaigns about our support for that. But Liv is the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and she has made sure, hey, we are not just going to get this piece of legislation, bring it up for a vote tomorrow. What we're going to do is we're going to have all these listening sessions. We're going to bring the grassroots organizations. We're going to bring the people from the community all to the table to give their input, because at the end of the day, it shouldn't just be me and Liv and whoever else is fighting for this on council who are deciding what that legislation is that should be passed. You know, Liv has made it a very clear point that it needs to be everyone coming together and making sure that we have the most effective, solid legislation possible when it comes to oversight of our police force.
Yeah, and I think that is a confusing thing for some people on our council, is that we are kind of changing the model of leadership. Like, we are more collaborative. We're more collaborative leaders. We're more leaders who are like, while we will be happy to take this space and sit at the table, we don't know everything. We are not authors and enders and finishers of things. So we want to hear your voice in order, and we sought and we're seeking to represent you. And if we can't hear your voice, then how can we represent you? But the people on council, they seem to have this, well, you're the leader, so you should, like, being a leader doesn't mean you always have to make the decision, a unilateral decision. Sometimes being a leader is knowing when to bring other people to the table. Just like we've been, Black electeds did a whole fight for getting testing in our communities. Did Black electeds make that happen by themselves? No, we brought Black healthcare and public health officials, or not officials, people who work in that field to the table and let them say, no, y'all are on some bullshit because here's our numbers and this is what we need and this is why and da da da. So it's not always about being the expert at everything. It's getting that collaboration. It's bringing everybody together so that you know that you're speaking for the whole and not just for a very marginal or very margin of few, like what we've been seeing. So I think this is a good lesson for people on council though, because hopefully they start emulating that.
So just taking the whole idea of progressives and progressive leadership, I think this is a good transition to the election day results. Plus, technically we have 2.5 minutes left, but let's be real. We're going to go over that. Okay, Jake, prepare yourself. Clear your calendar. Progressive ladies kind of won the day. I think every single woman for the future endorsed candidate won.
Every Unite candidate won.
Every Unite candidate won, yes. Again. The ACDC endorsed candidates, they didn't have a good day.
No, they didn't.
No. So Bethany, what do you think the reason behind that was? Why do you think some of these progressive candidates just came out and just smashed the ball out of the park? And what do you think that maybe says about where we are right now and what it means for the future of Allegheny County politics?
Yeah, so I think that the future doesn't look too good for the Allegheny County Democratic Committee. Yeah, it wasn't even this cycle, but last cycle and cycles prior, like the fact that endorsed candidates are going on to lose is almost a testament to people who are voting against the Allegheny County Democratic Committee because of all, especially that's been in the media lately, of just all the issues with the committee. And again, that is a whole nother episode. We could just talk about that for a whole half hour. But again, we had Summer Lee, wiped the whole floor with her opponent. And by doing so, also wiped the floor with our county executive because he was the one, who endorsed and put up the candidate against Representative Summer Lee. We had Emily Kincaid take out the last of the Ravenstalls in Allegheny County in Pittsburgh, which, that's what I was doing at the polls all day on Tuesday, was trying to get out the vote for her.
I just want to brag about my district because she's my district. So in the last year, my district, my Bout It district, has replaced a council person, a city council person, and a state rep. I need the rest of y'all to get like us.
And again, remember, all three of those people who won those seats, Liv, were all not endorsed by the Allegheny County Democratic Committee, right? So then on top of those two, we also had Jessica Benham, who won her race in a 4-way race, which is, a feat in itself. She is the first autistic person surveyor, openly autistic person. I'm not sure what the exact phrase is.
It's openly LGBTQ and autistic. She's on the autistic spectrum.
Openly LGBTQ, and the first autistic person to be in any state legislature. That's not just in Pennsylvania. In any state legislature in the entire country, that is an amazing feat. And when we talk about representation, it's people like Jessica Benham, who are really bringing representation to a lot of folks who haven't ever seen that before, especially representing them in government. And then again, we also had Lissa Geiger-Schulman, who won her primary against Marco Adesanya, who was, again, he was endorsed by the Allegheny County Democratic Committee. Lissa was endorsed by a slew of progressive elected officials in her district, and she won that race. So, I mean, as far as progressives, that's not even bringing up the uncontested races. As far as progressive women in Allegheny County, it was a hell of a day on Tuesday. I've needed this past 2 days to kind of process all the feelings from that. We really saw, despite any obstacles that were placed in people's way, there were people who waited in line for hours to vote for some of these folks because of the polling consolidation plan that was initiated throughout the county. And so I want to send them all a huge congratulations. I look forward to some amazing progressive women who are running in competitive general elections in November. And it was a great day all around, and I hope we continue this in November and in the primary next year and beyond.
All right, and then Liv, I'm actually going to give you the last word today, so I can keep us somewhat on schedule. Does this strike fear in the heart of the establishment, or should they be afraid? And but let me rephrase that. How afraid should they be?
I have a different view on this. I think it depends upon the office. Because I'm noticing that we can take these low, and I don't want to say low because it's not that these officers aren't important and then they don't do good work and they don't have a lot of responsibility, but like it seems like we're getting, you know, pretty in this box of you know, like local races, like city council, county council, state rep, but we're not making it into like, at least in this region, to US anything like Congress and anything like that. So for me, I think in the local realm and even even like mayors, like the mayor should be probably looking out. Rich Fitzgerald, even though he can't run again, I think that seat is probably going to look a little bit more progressive. So locally, like that, those types of seats, I think those are shifting. But I'm in a place where I'm trying to figure out if we're at this place of a glass ceiling. Like, okay, you can lead all the way up to here, but here we get a little uncomfortable with putting progressives or people of color in these seats because those are just way too much of importance, and we can't default to Black leadership or other leadership. We have to, you know, go with the status quo. So I'm still trying to like process that and figure that part out, because I don't understand with people, like if we have thousands in the street protesting anti-racist behavior or anti-Black behavior, then why doesn't that show over here when you have the opportunity to vote for somebody who's progressive as hell, who's been working around progressive things like housing, incarceration, and all these other things, and you have him, and the person who's sitting in that office has sat there while this has become the worst place for Black women to live, has become the worst place for air, and all these things, but y'all still don't vote him out. It leaves me confused. So
hopeful, but still a lot of work to do.
Hopeful, but just like in a corporation where a lot of Black people find themselves only be able to get to a certain level before they're not able to go above that plateau. I feel like that's where we are in the political scene as well.
All right, well, hey, we got a little while till the general election. It'll be really interesting to see how things play out. Liv Bennett, thank you again so much for joining us today. I really, really hope you come back, because I don't want to say this was fun because we talked about some heavy shit, but it was really enlightening, and I really enjoyed your commentary. So I hope you come back sometime.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
you know, whenever Bethany calls, I'm here.
Oh, I love you. Same goes for you, Liv. You know that.
Yeah, and and I'm sure Aaron will be back next week. We'll be back on Wednesday at 9 next week, unless God, who knows? Something. That's our goal. Always. Always.
That's the best part of this show. You never know what's going to happen.
We should have just called it. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. If you have any questions about the show, if you want to be a guest, if you want to be a sponsor, if you want to tell me off, Bethany@PittsburghCurrent.com. I love hearing what you guys think. So for now, we're going to sign off. Have a great Thursday. Enjoy your weekend, and goodbye.